I guess it is time to start. And I'm super happy. I'm super happy to be your host today, alongside my dear colleagues who will join me in a second. And I'm more than happy to also welcome you to our second webinar of the series. Today's title is How to Use Reddit for Authority, AI Visibility, and Brand Sentiment. Some of you may already know me, but hopefully many of you don't. So my name is Giuseppe Colucci. I am the Chief Growth Officer at Textbroker Group. And today, together with my colleagues, I'm co-organizing this series of webinar where we focus on hands-on tactics and strategies for AI search or GEO, however you want to call it, and SEO. Before I welcome on stage today's speakers, allow me to say a couple of words just to build a little bit of context. As I said, I am from Textbroker Group. Textbroker, as you some of you may already know, is a long-standing service provider, actor of the SEO and content industry. We have been in the market for more than 20 years now, 21 years to be precise. And today we are a multi-brand service provider in the fields of content, SEO, and the AI search. We started, as many of you may know, as a marketplace for human content creators. And today we operate with 3 brands. One is still our, let's say, legacy marketplace for content creators, Textbroker. One is our boutique agency focused on AI search strategies and execution with strong focus on authoritative content strategies and Reddit organic marketing, which is the topic today, called StoryLake. And our SaaS product called Transparent.ai, which is right now in a private beta phase and will go to market very soon. Today we are talking about Reddit. As I said, it is one of the areas we have been digging into quite profoundly over the last, I would say, almost 2 years. It has been on our radar for a long time, right? For different reasons. So it has been part of what we do for a long time, but now for more or less 1.5 to 2 years has become really an offer, like a service we offer to our customers. As you will see also during this presentation today, unlike other agencies do, we focus on white hat practices, trying to support our brand customers with value-driven content and trying to bridge the gap between an overarching AI visibility strategy and let's say, a strategy that works organically on Reddit. Within this series of webinars, we always partner up with partners or friends. Usually they are partners and friends that we work with together, so that we have some real life hands-on experiences that we can share. And today we are super proud and happy to share the virtual stage with our friends from Rankscale AI, and in particular with Jules de Bruin, who I'm happy to welcome on stage virtually. Jules is the Chief of Staff at Rankscale AI, and he will shortly also introduce himself. I'm gonna later also welcome on stage my dear colleagues, Cody Christensen and Katarina de Almeida from our US branch. Cody is our CEO US. Katarina is our senior consultant for Reddit and geostrategists. And before we get started with the nitty-gritty, let me just share a couple of words for housekeeping. First of all, we are happy to experiment today with StreamYard platform for the first time. So you got to be a little bit patient with us in case maybe not everything works 100% as it should. We are just switching from another platform, and so we have decided to experiment with StreamYard today. Please feel free to leave any comments or questions in the comments section. Your comments and questions will be read at the end of the presentations during the AMA, Ask Me Anything part, which will take the last 10 to 15 minutes. So be patient, please. If you want to address your question specifically to any of our speakers today, please kindly add their name so that we know who to address your question to. And with that, I suppose we are ready to go. So I will leave the word to Jules, and please, Jules, go ahead.
Perfect. First of all, thanks a lot for that we can co-host this webinar. I think Textbroker is a really solid partner to do this with. And of course, we're very, very happy to collaborate on this. I'm the chief of staff at Rankscale AI. We are a Vienna-based AI visibility platform. We strive to be the most in-depth and flexible AI visibility platform on the market, which means that we don't push you, for example, to a higher tier because you need a different AI engine. That's very important for us. And when it comes to depth, we, for example, are being used by other platforms for their AI visibility features, which means that you can just, as a smaller agency, actually have the same kind of data that these very, very big platforms also actually take from us. So I will quickly go to the next slide. And would you like to do the agenda, Giuseppe, or should I do it?
Please, you can take it from here and you can already go into the next slide if you want.
All right, perfect. So first of all, we did the quick welcome. I'm going to focus on AI visibility and authority gaps. I have been running some experiments with Rankscale itself. We have 30,000 AI citations, and I'm going to share the insights from those. Then thereafter, we're going to see some case studies and tactics on how to establish topical authority on Reddit, and Cody and Katarina, they will provide this. And then thereafter, of course, every question that you have, please just ask them. We are here and we are very, very happy to answer them. So quick one. Once again, I just need to provide this primer, but AI search is built on 3 different pillars. We have technical SEO, we have content, and we have off-page authority as well. Technical SEO is still foundational. It is to make sure that your website is crawlable, that the data that is on there is structured, and that, for example, also your website loads fast. Because if it takes a long time, for example, to load your content, maybe it is hidden in a JavaScript, then it could be that an AI search engine just skips your website. When it comes to content, what this means is that you provide the right information for potentially your prospect that is in the buying journey, and that you answer any potential question that a prospect can have. This can be an informational phase, so more top of funnel, considerational phase, or transactional phase. And then the final one, off-page authority, I like to just call this mention building. Nowadays, it's in line also with the link building from SEO. But when it comes to mention building, is making sure that you are being mentioned on these third-party websites that matter. And honestly, Reddit is one of those websites that matter. Nonetheless, everything is always with a nuance, and that is also something that we will see later in the insights that we're going to share from the experiment that we ran. Just also very, very important mention is you have these 3 pillars, and if you would just invest in one, don't expect to directly dominate an AI search. These 3 different pillars, they all fill different gaps within or what an AI search engine looks for. So if you really, really want to improve your AI visibility, make sure that that these pillars, that these teams behind these different pillars actually collaborate, because in that case, 1 + 1 = 3 and not just +2. So what is an authority gap? An authority gap, very easy. It's just a distance between what an AI model needs in order to trust and recommend your brand over competitors, and third-party validation. Why brands can potentially struggle in this is because they only have brand-owned content. So there is no independent validation. There is potentially no presence in communities that these buyers actually trust. And also very important, backlinks, back from SEO. They don't signal this lived experience. And what Reddit actually really, really does well is if there is a user, a prospect sharing something about a specific brand on Reddit, it signals experience and expertise. And AI models really, really appreciate experience and expertise. Then what it also feels is this community validation. And also something that we will see later is Reddit is just a third-party source that AI systems trust the most. And it actually influences really, really heavily the sentiment around a brand. Not fully in like absolute numbers, but how it gets described. So once again, I've been running some experiments. We had 30,000 AI citations, and we're going to bust some myths based on what this taught us. I've been using the Rankscale MCP as well as the API to get all these insights. What I like about, for example, having the in-depth API is that you really see what kind of patterns just stay below the radar, nonetheless could be interesting to act upon. So myth one, Reddit serves consideration phase only prompts. Actually, this is slightly true. So the majority of the consideration prompts still, or like at least when Reddit got cited, this was in 56% of the cases in a consideration prompt. Nonetheless, don't look over the information and transactional prompts because still it's 21% and 23%. Then another myth that I would like to bust, Reddit is for discovery only. Once again, it depends. I don't like to say it when somebody asks me, Jules, what should I do? That I always need to start with, it depends. But for example, for the case of digital photo frames, Reddit was purely used for discovery or mostly used for discovery. So it was very, very little cited on branded prompts. Whereas if you then went to bridal and wedding dresses, actually Reddit was there pure for validation. So in branded prompts, it got cited the most, very, very little in non-branded prompts. The third myth that I want to bust is Reddit only serves ChatGPT. As you can see there on the slide, ChatGPT is still significant, 2.9%, but Google as well as Perplexity really, really value Reddit citations. Then the fourth one, Reddit should be my first step. As I previously said, it always depends. It depends on the vertical. So in this case, we had, for example, 10 verticals where Reddit was not being cited once. Nonetheless, in other verticals, it was actually quite significant. So make sure that you check out which Reddit or which vertical are we active in. Is Reddit actually being used here as a source? And then you can just use, I think, the tactics that we're going to see later in this webinar to actually act on these insights to improve your AI visibility score there. Then another myth that I personally always thought was true, only popular posts matter. I noticed actually a lot of these winning threads are just years old. They're not even top voted. They have very little upvotes. Nonetheless, what you see there is that they answer very specific questions. And then, of course, an AI search engine prefers this kind of content. And then a sixth myth is best of posts work best. What we actually saw is these head-on-head comparisons. For example, A1 versus Magenta, two internet providers. If you have these very, very specific comparison posts between two different brands, these actually outperformed what is the best of this specific vertical prompts quite heavily. And then a final myth that I quickly want to debunk is AI citing. Reddit is just repeating what is already out there. And this caught me a little bit by surprise, but there is actually very, very little overlap between the sentiment keywords that are being used. For example, I'm just gonna name a generic one, let's say reliable or broad coverage. There is a very, very big difference between how these brands get described when Reddit gets cited and Reddit does not get cited. So what we can actually state from this is that Reddit reliably changes what gets said about a specific brand. If you, for example, want to use Rankscale yourself, you can scan the QR code. Use the code Reddit for 10% off. And normally the API is only available from the growth plan onwards, which is 385 euros a month. Nonetheless, if you send me a mail, then I will enable it as well on your account from the pro plan onwards, which is only 99 euros a month. So these are some insights why Reddit actually matters. And then I'm very, very happy to give the stage to Cody and Katarina to discuss how can we actually leverage Reddit to influence and improve our AI visibility.
Awesome. Thanks, Jules. Appreciate your insight there. Happy to be here, everybody. Again, my name's Cody Christensen. I'm the CEO of the US branch here for Textbroker. I'm joined today by my colleague, Katarina. She is our lead Reddit and AI search consultant, and we're excited to get into this today. So, we just learned from Jules the test that he did with authority on Reddit, the results as customers go through the customer journey, at what steps should you be on Reddit. So a lot of valuable information there that we hope to build on here. And then, like he said, if you do have questions during the presentation, just put them in the chat. We'll do a quick AMA afterwards and hopefully be able to get to everybody's. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and jump right into it. The agenda that Kat and I have for you today, we're going to go over what doesn't work anymore. Like Giuseppe said, we've been testing this now for at least a few years, if not more. It's been on our radar for a while. The staff for the past 2 to 3 years have been testing different things, monitoring results. So we're going to talk about what doesn't work anymore. Then we'll get into, the valuable part of this, which are the tactics that do work, and then bringing it all together, how the tactics compound, how you can close that authority gap, get more citations, improve your sentiment on Reddit, and go from there. So with that agenda laid out, if you all are familiar with Reddit, digital marketing, I'm sure you saw this last week. Essentially, Reddit corporate published on their blog that they are taking steps via automation and AI to crack down on bots, spam, inauthentic upvotes. You can see it right there. They blocked 23 million spam views, 25,000 spammy posts and comments, revoking nearly 2 million inauthentic votes per day. The message is clear to me, at least, and to us here at Textbroker, is that Reddit is aware of the, let's say, kind of gray hat, black hat activity that companies, businesses, agencies are doing on Reddit to try and get these short-term wins with citations. As you can see, Bloomberg's covered it, Tech Times, and this, I included the one down below from the BBC because this wasn't about the July 6th update. This was all the way back in February, where we've known for a long time that this crackdown was coming, that they were going to get more strict. And so, like Giuseppe said at the beginning of the webinar, we really try and focus on long-term integrity strategy that works for sentiment increase, AI citations, and so forth. So again, to kind of recap, what doesn't work, you can't automate trust, right? People go to Reddit so they can hear human interaction, human experience. They want to trust what the other Redditor is saying to them. So if you use AI, use it as a draft, use it as a way to kind of outline and formulate what you want to say, how you want to respond, the post you want to create. But we highly recommend to never copy and paste or even set up automations to post and respond on Reddit. They'll get called out pretty quickly. Redditors are very smart. They can see patterns. They know, for the most part, who's a human and who's a bot. And if the Redditors don't, then the moderators do, and the corporate accounts do with the tools that they have access to. So the other thing that we've seen in the past that may have worked at one point but doesn't really get that good of a return anymore is inserting your brand name or the brand that you're doing work for in a legacy thread that is coming up in AI search or in traditional SEO. Yeah, that might seem like a quick win. You do a search, you see this thread that's 2 years old. Oftentimes, one, those threads are locked, so you can't even comment on them. Two, if they are unlocked, it's a pretty big red flag to the moderators and to Reddit that you are going in there mentioning your company on a thread that hasn't been active for months or years. So that's something that, again, may have worked in the past. You might get some short-term wins, but in our experience, you're probably going to see some negative effects for that. The third one is inorganic astroturfing, a bit redundant, I would say, inorganic and astroturfing, but I think it's worth saying that if you go in there just to mention your company's name or your service, and it has really nothing to do, there's no valuable information added to the comment or the post, you're going to get banned. You might get shadow banned. You might get downvoted. It's just, again, a short-term solution that's really not going to get you the citations or the increased sentiment that you're looking for. So again, we'll get into what does work, but for the meantime, suffice to say that astroturfing, it's the rule in all of the subreddits is you're not supposed to astroturf. And two, again, it's just not going to get you the long-term wins that you're looking for with AI citations. Fourth, and perhaps the most important, is thinking that a well-ran Reddit campaign or a PR campaign, a digital marketing campaign on Reddit can overcome brand or product shortcomings. People on Reddit are just that. They're people. They're real humans. They're very aware of the shortcomings that your services and your products and your brand might have. So when we take on new clients, when we help with Reddit brand marketing, one of the first things we do is evaluate the brand or the service and determine, is a Reddit campaign going to help them with their sentiment, or do they have bigger problems back at corporate where they need to figure out bugs or shortcomings, or there's a long list of complaints? Because anytime you go on Reddit, you essentially are inviting your audience to communicate with you. You can't control whether that communication is going to be negative or positive. So you want to make sure foundationally beforehand, before you invite that conversation, that everything's tidy back at home, right? That your product is good, everything runs well, you have support, and it's just a good overall experience. Again, you're not going to satisfy 100% of the people, but I think we kind of all know the belief that we have in, is the product or service we're putting out to Reddit ready to be discussed on Reddit? And that's an honest conversation that I invite all of you to have with your teams. Cool. So let's go ahead and get into what actually works. This is a screenshot from Reddit's business page. As you can see the link down below. I wanted to call it out. Again, this is straight from Reddit. They say people come to Reddit to find out more about a topic from those who know it best. And I think the key part right here is at the end, whether it's peers or brands. They are inviting brands to participate on Reddit. I've talked to some people before that say like, oh, brands can't go on Reddit. Reddit doesn't like when corporate actors are on there. That's not true at all. They invite you there. We have connections at Reddit Corporate, and they've told us multiple times ad campaigns run better and they get better results and better ROI when you have an organic strategy associated with it as well. So that's one thing I want to start with is brands, corporates, companies are welcome and encouraged to go on Reddit if they do it the right way. Right, Kat?
Yeah, that's correct. I've seen brands do it the right way every day, and really there are some do's and don'ts that you should and shouldn't do, but that's okay if you're a brand and you're doing it the right way. Taking a lot of our advice from what we know, worth of 30 to 40 years of experience on Reddit, there is definitely a way to do it.
Perfect. So I want to start with, we did some research. We analyzed different campaigns and cited threads and comments and boiled it down to 6 key takeaways. I realize this is probably a bit small. You will get a recording if you want of this webinar after, and then the next slide will actually list out exactly what the call outs are from these 6 findings that we found. So 1, the title needs to match the question. So if you're on Reddit, if you're doing research and you're like, okay, I need to prepare to respond to comments, I want to get authority, you need to find posts that have titles that match the question. Very close with using terms from Google and SEO, it needs to be exact match keywords essentially. So many questions get asked on Reddit every single day that you should be able to find very niche specific questions that then you can respond to. The next thing is, remember, it is a discussion, right? So what you're looking for is not a huge thread, super popular, has 5,000 upvotes, 5,000 comments. Those generally don't tend to get cited. Those are more of like the discussions that Reddit finds, more on like are popular or are all. Again, not used for a lot of citations in our experience and what we found. So our recommendation is stick again to what you know. Stick to the threads. They don't have to be hugely popular. They don't have to have lots of comments, but as long as that title is a question that's relevant to your brand or service, that is an opportunity for you to go out and respond with a comment. Again, just to piggyback off of that, single digits are enough. The median upvote on cited threads was only 9 upvotes. So it's not like you're putting this out in front of 1 million people. It's in front of a very specific niche group of people that is very helpful to find on Reddit, because those are the people that are really looking for what your brand has to offer. Again, you need to find the right subreddit. There's thousands of subreddits across Reddit. New ones get added every day. New ones get taken away every day. So this is something that you constantly have to be evaluating, is which subreddits are relevant to your industry, your product, your service. The next thing, and we'll have an example of this later, but typically what gains a citation is one clear, concise, top voted answer. And a lot of the times that response, that answer will tend to have more upvotes than the actual post question itself, which was something that we found interesting. And then finally, it stays cited for years. If it's a really good answer, if it's concise, it answers their question, it'll stay on there for a long time. As you can see there, the average was between 1 to 2 years, with the longest being close to 5 years. So again, if you do this right, if you answer the question as best as possible, then you do have a chance to gain this citation for a very, very long time. So again, to use some Reddit language, the TLDR, number one, you want to identify the posts and comments that are standalone questions. Those are that's the low hanging fruit, right? That's going back to SEO and doing keyword research. That's the low difficulty keywords right there, is identifying posts and comments that are a standalone question. Ensure the question is posted in a topically relevant subreddit. The post must be conversational, helpful in tone, not promotional. Well, again, we'll get kind of more into that. The most cited threads had one clear top voted answer. Subscriber counts and upvotes aren't necessarily a reliable predictor of success. And then citations can come from legacy threads up to almost 5 years old. Let me kind of add one thing here, because I'm sure a lot of you have the SEO overlap here. Upvotes are kind of like click-through rates on traditional SEO, right? They do matter and they are part of the algorithm, but they're not the determining factor. So I don't want the takeaway to be like, oh, upvotes aren't important. They are important. They are a signal that triggers the algorithm and helps with that, but they're not the end all. So that's something that I want to clarify here and kind of make that comparison. All right, so now that we have talked about what not to do and what to do, we're going to expand on the what to do in terms of how we actually approach this, right? So we take a 4-step approach. We start with an audit. We moved on to strategy, execution, and then reporting. And it's kind of, we look at it as like a staircase, right? Or a pyramid. You have to build the first piece before you can move on to the next, because that piece then feeds information and strategy into the next. So audit, I'm sure it kind of caught your attention, but the QR code is here. So the giveaway we're doing is for a free Reddit sentiment analysis. I put it on this slide because the screenshots of what you're seeing are actually from that sentiment analysis. So if you like what you see, again, this is only a snippet, but you can scan that QR code. We'll give you a free sentiment analysis, go over what your brand is doing well, where the opportunities are on Reddit, and where we see the potential for citations. So if you'll excuse kind of the redacted parts here, this is a client that we have confidentiality with, but I did want to show a real life example and not just something that we had mocked up for you. So as you can see, it really just lays out how their brand is performing on Reddit. It talks about their criticism. It talks about maybe some of the evangelists that they have on Reddit, the Reddit accounts that speak up for them, the ones that are detractors, and gives you essentially the information you need to build a strategy or a plan of attack for going through Reddit. Kat, is there anything you want to add here? I want to invite Kat here because she, as our lead Reddit consultant, is very hands-on in creating these sentiment analysis, reviewing them. So Kat, anything you want to add here would be great.
I think I did want to add, I know someone asked a question in the chat just about, if something is negative and how we play off of that. I think this slide is a great example of that, just showing that, sometimes there is a high percentage of negative conversation where it can be up to 70% of that, right? So even if your brand is in that negative high level 70%, you can work off of that and find areas where you can basically kind of holes in conversations where you can go and create more of a positive sentiment. And that's what you see down there. We do have, recommendations on how to defend certain things. We don't necessarily recommend being combative, but there are other plans of attacks and other developments that we can create to work off and away from that negative sentiment. So it just gives you that insight, just like if you were to do social listening. This is what this type of report goes through, and it's very in-depth.
Absolutely. And yeah, negative sentiment is something that we help brands and services overcome. And it's possible, but I will be very transparent and say it's not defeated overnight, right? This is a long-term play. It's a step-by-step approach again. You're not going to go in and a month later, your 30% sentiment score is going to go up to 90. That's just not possible. You have to be accepting of where you're at and understanding the road ahead. And like Kat said, just identifying those opportunities and making the best of them. All right. So again, I realize the overlap here between SEO and AI search people and how it pertains to Reddit. So keyword research is just, again, doing your research on Reddit, finding the relevant topics, subreddits, communities, find your people, right? You should have your ICP for your company. You can find those same people on Reddit, right? Search for relevant subreddits. There are subreddit finders tools that you can use, but go and find your people, meet them where they're at. 2, the content clusters, that's the ecosystems across the related subreddits. What are you going to post? When are you going to post it? How are you going to post it? One thing that we do is we help brands go through their existing content library, their content asset library, and figure out which of these content assets could we actually repurpose for Reddit. Do you have infographics? Do you have case studies, stats, anything like that in a non-promotional way, your ICP or your audience on Reddit would actually be interested in hearing about. The next is backlinks, domain authority. Jules kind of covered a little bit about this, but that's the karma, the tenure, the account age, the authority that it's developed. All of that is kind of like your authority, your domain authority on Reddit. And then the EEAT trust signals are very much the same, right? You need expertise, you need authority, you need trustworthiness. You need all of that to close that authority gap on Reddit. You know, that's the whole A in EAT, right? Is that authority. If you don't have that when you're communicating on Reddit, you're going to have a hard time gaining those citations and showing your audience that you're there to be helpful. All right, so this is the TLDR of the executional tactics that we're going to get into. We're going to talk about how to do value add posts, thoughtful, helpful comments on existing threads, and then value add AMAs in niche specific subreddits. So again, this is from our sentiment analysis, but it basically is saying that every conversation that you don't participate in, where your ICP is talking about problems that you solve, is an opportunity you're handing to your competitors. Those conversations happen every day, every week in multiple different subreddits. So if you're not actively listening and you are actively monitoring these opportunities, it's a great way for your competitors to either close the gap that you might have created or for them to extend their lead that they already have against you. So it's really not something that you can wait around and be passive about. You have to be very proactive with Reddit brand marketing. So first thing we'll get into, which is typically the easiest, is the value add posts. Obviously, you need to create an account first. And maybe I'll pause right here to say, if you get an account banned or shadow banned, it's not the end of the world. More join the club, right? If anybody has extensive experience testing Reddit, doing Reddit brand marketing, you're going to get an account ban, you're going to get a shadow ban, even if you think you're doing it the right way. A lot of the times we've seen Reddit's proactive monitoring overcorrect in some ways, where we've not only our accounts, but other accounts that we've been monitoring that are truly doing value add activity. Just their account age might be too low, their karma might have gotten too high too quickly, which I know sounds kind of weird, but that is something that moderators look for. So again, don't get offended, don't get discouraged. If you have an account that gets banned or shadow banned, you're now part of the marketing club on Reddit, and it's no big deal as long as you're trying your best to stick within Reddit's best practices. So that being said, one thing that we recommend that people do is when you do post, it should be real substantial text. That outperforms promotional copy every single time. Redditors are very perceptive. They can tell what is being disguised as astroturfing or promotional copy and what is actually helpful information, right? So to be helpful and to give you that best chance of gaining a citation, you always want to lead with the answer. This is not a blog post about searching for a recipe where you need to tell your life story about how this recipe is your aunt's favorite. That SEO of 2010 is long gone, right? On Reddit, people want to get straight to the point. They're scrolling, they're on their phone. They want the answer summarized right in that first couple of sentences. 2, show your work. How do they know that the answer you're providing is truthful? You can establish credibility by saying who you are, your experience. You know, if you want to remain anonymous on Reddit, you're not operating under a branded account, you probably don't want to say anything that's going to dox yourself, but you can show case studies, you can show facts, you can show figures to back up your claims that you make. And then, like I said, state your credibility. Why should the people trust you? What about your post is EEAT oriented? Like, how can you prove that through what you posted? And we will go ahead and show you an example of this. This is from Cloudflare. This was posted in their own branded subreddit, but I thought it was a really good example. They basically just showed their community how they rebuilt that with AI in 1 week. They talked about it, gave a brief update. As you can see, it got a lot of upvotes for a niche specific branded subreddit, 81 upvotes, 34 on the description posts. And then I thought it was fun. I included a Redditor's comment that says, another reason for me to love Cloudflare, right? So this is a good example of a post in a branded subreddit. You can do it in non-branded subreddits, but a well thought out post to help with AI citations. That anybody that might be searching how to use AI, you know, with Cloudflare or the next.js, like whatever that may be, they are gaining that citation, right? And as well, they're directing traffic, referral traffic from Reddit back to their Cloudflare blog, which is another key performance indicator that we look at. All right, so the next step is thoughtful, helpful comments. Again, this is kind of another baseline step, but answering real questions in threads that already have intent, then contribute. You want to read the tone of the conversation, the rules of the subreddit, and kind of see what the regulars who comment, how they comment, what they talk about. Not saying you have to be conforming to what they've set up, but at least be aware of it. A lot of the times, if you go on a subreddit and ask a question or respond to a comment that's already been discussed ad nauseum on that subreddit time and time again, you're going to get called out for trying to do this for manipulation or just not paying attention to what's going on in the subreddit. And you're going to make a bad impression with all the users, all the subscribers there. So again, I want to reiterate that the median upvotes on posts were only 9. So when you're looking for posts to go and comment in, don't let it deter you if it only has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 upvotes. Those are typically the ones that provide the best opportunities, right? And volume isn't the goal. You want to be very specific. This is not the shotgun approach, the spray and pray. You want to be highly targeted with the threads and the comments that you go and talk about. Your product, your business, your solution solves a specific problem that people have. Go talk about that. Go talk about why your solution is the best, not in a promotional sense, but why it actually solves the problem, why people use you. Talk to your clients and figure out, hey, why have you been a client of ours for 25 years? What do you enjoy about the solution that we provide? And then internalize that and then go and comment on like-minded people that maybe in their customer journey haven't quite discovered that solution yet, right? Your clients that you can get testimonials from have already progressed through the customer journey enough so you can gather that and repurpose it back for people who are earlier in the stages. So again, the discipline here is to keep it relevant. If you're useful, that is the key. One relevant response, one relevant post is better than 10 non-relevant posts. Answering the question asked, resist the urge to redirect your product. Again, I know we're marketers. It's our job, in a sense, to market and be promotional. On Reddit, that comes down the line. Right now, we're just in the educational phase, the nurturing phase. We're not directing them to go check out and make a purchase decision right now. And then building karma in the community before you even mention your brand. Just like on LinkedIn or any other space where you're building up your authority, you don't just go in there and say, hey, I'm the best. I think I'm the best. I know more than all of you. You show your expertise. You're a helpful part of the community. You collaborate with people. You even comment and maybe say like, hey, I hadn't even thought about this before. I've been in the industry for 20 years. This is some great insight. People want to know that they're being helpful as well. So I think those types of comments are a really good avenue to grow that account and establish yourself and introduce yourself to that community that you're operating in.
I think if I may, I can add to that as well, just being, kind of like a Reddit specialist. I do have my own specific Textbroker account where I will go and, add feedback or even comments telling someone, hey, that was actually really good advice. I've seen this as well. Kind of like riff with them, talk with them like they're an actual person. And that, that helps not only our brand, but also my credibility within those subreddits as well. So it is something that I test on my own daily, and it works very well. Some people really appreciate it.
Absolutely. That just leans into the humanization aspect of it, right? Is they want to know that they're having a conversation. They know at that point they're talking to a real human. They can see, Kat from Textbroker. It's not a random account that they think might be automated or might be outsourced. They're talking to you, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people this day in 2026 with AI, they kind of miss. They miss that connection of like, oh, I'm talking to a human who has a unique perspective that might be able to help me in my unique situation as well.
Yeah.
Very good. Thanks, Kat. So this is an example of a helpful comment. This is posted in the Microsoft subreddit. As you can see, there was a customer that frustrated with the purchasing experience. And then an employee who had the employee tag, one of the moderators gave that to him, I'm assuming, in Microsoft subreddit. And he basically responded saying, hey, I've never heard of this before. I'm sorry you had that experience. Let me help you with this, right? So it's very helpful with a customer complaint. It gives action-driven response. And again, if you look at this, the answer has more upvotes than the actual post. The post only has 19 upvotes. This response garnered 51. And so I know our main goal is AI citations, but we can't forget about just the awareness and the PR capabilities of what you can do on Reddit. These 51 people that upvoted this account probably didn't have the same issue with purchasing a Surface laptop. They were just like, oh, this is a very helpful employee from Microsoft, and it gives them good sentiment about maybe using Microsoft for a purchase decision in the future because they see their employees are active on Reddit and willing to help. And again, that they know they're buying from a human. So a very good call out there, Kat. I know we're kind of running long on time here, so I'm going to try and pick up the pace a little bit. The last tactic that we want to share with you today is hosting and operating niche-specific AMAs. So AMAs, for those who aren't familiar, stand for Ask Me Anything. It's a very popular Reddit experience, let's call it. Been around for years and years and years. You may have seen it. I would say it's popular celebrities, President Obama, Arnold Schwarzenegger. A lot of people have done massive AMAs on Reddit. And essentially what Reddit has done is they've now taken that same framework that they've used with these very famous people and placed it in topically relevant subreddits where you can build a community, establish that authority. And then once you figure out like, hey, I have a lot of information that people are interested in, you host an AMA. Let people ask you questions. Let them do the hard work for you. Instead of you going and doing your keyword research and finding which questions to ask, posting those questions, finding answers to those questions, let your clients and your ICP ask those questions for you. They do the hard work for you. You formulate the answer. You talk just like a human would in responding to those. And it's something that really helps generate a lot of AI citations. It's the last tactic because it's the hardest. And it takes the most amount of time to kind of build the foundation to set up. You can't just go into a brand new subreddit with 10 subscribers and think you're going to have a successful AMA. You need to build that foundation first, or you need to build that relationship with moderators in an already existing subreddit. So then you can say, hey, I have topical authority in XYZ. Here are my credentials. A lot of people seem to be interested in this. Would you be okay if I dedicated an hour of my time to do an AMA? So there are a lot of different ways to do it. You can control your own subreddit if you want. You can develop relationships with moderators, but doing an AMA is a really good way to gain citations with questions and prompts and queries that your audience is actually asking. And this is a really good example. This is from the corporate account of Orkin Pest Control. She did an AMA. Again, this is from a couple of years ago, but it received 217 upvotes. And I thought this was very, very smart. I wanted to use this as an example because it's the textbook example. It shows who she is, who she's with, and that she's credible. She's board certified. And if you look down in the post, she has her master's degree in entomology. She went to a prestigious university here in the United States, and she's certified with Orkin. So the credibility is there. You know who she is. She has a picture. That's humanized it. And then they tied it in with the content calendar of hashtag bug week, right? Or bug week fails. So this is whoever did this for Orkin, big kudos to. Obviously, I'm using it as an example here in the webinar. But if you were to formulate an AMA, this is a textbook example of how to do it. And then she goes through it. She talks about why she's doing it, why she's interested in bugs, why she's the right person to have this conversation with. So again, you can repeat this process in your industry. There has to be people in your company, if it's not you yourself, that are experts in what you do, right? Just talking to Jules about Rankscale, it's obvious he knows the ins and outs of that platform, of AI citations. He could go on there, do an AMA, answer people's questions, and that would be relevant in, an AI search subreddit. I don't even know if there is one, but a geo-driven subreddit, something like that. It doesn't have to be bugs. It doesn't have to be anything big. It just should be specific to what you know best, what you know just as good or better than anybody else. Additional tactics that I wanted to cover, just so we're clear, those 3 tactics are not the only tools in the Reddit playbook or toolbox. We also work on branded subreddit creation and development, industry adjacent, so non-branded subreddit development, Reddit ad strategy and management. Like I said, we have a relationship with Reddit corporate. One thing that they strongly endorse is having that strong organic presence on Reddit to supplement the paid presence. And then finally is crisis monitoring and response. Obviously, there is a PR component of Reddit. People could go on there if something went wrong with your service, if there was an outage, whatever it may be. We have tools and staff dedicated to crisis monitoring and response to help you with any PR nightmares that might come your way on Reddit. Finally, and I'll let Kat kind of get into this because she was the main driver behind this case study, but with our reporting, this is what we look at, right? We look at citations, we look at sentiment increase, and we look at increase in AI overview. So with that introduction, Kat, do you want to go over this and then we'll wrap it up?
Yeah. So the purpose of this case study was, the biggest challenge was that there was that authority gap on LLMs, and that was the client's goal here. So what we did is, this is actually something we utilize, those AI visibility tools like Rankscale, if not Rankscale, where we created a four-step workflow, doing the AI visibility and Reddit audit at the same time, and then putting those together with within that report, some examples that you saw previously. And then we built a strategy off of that, how we would work with the client with their content and fill those gaps. It also included a white hat Reddit execution. There is some, gray hat, black hat tactics that we see other brands do, and we strongly avoid that because we want the brand reputation to last and be strong. And then we continue to measure that and report and optimize that as we continue on. It's just not a one and done. We still work with the client on that as well. So at the end of that, we had a 3 times increase in AI citations. The increase in sentiment was about 19 points. And so that was from 19% to 58% increase in AI overviews. So the big thing here is that SEO alone is not enough, right? So combining that authoritative content with the authentic Reddit activity that we just talked about as well does create that third-party trust signals that AI models are looking for, are using to cite other brands. And with that said, throughout all of the audits that we do, we compared the client brand with their competitors as well to see where their competitors were winning and maybe where they were lacking, where we can get a leg up. And that's just a brief summary kind of overview of this case study that was very successful.
Awesome. Thanks, Kat. All right. So again, this is the TLDR of essentially what we do. We audit, we strategize, we execute, we report and monitor. And based on that reporting and the monitoring, we can adapt, we can pivot, we can lean into what's going well. And then part of that execution, right, is we comment, we post, we do AMAs, and that should help gain AI citations. So again, the final slide here is authority isn't claimed, it's earned. Truly, I believe that you have to go earn that with your expertise, with your authority, and that is when you will get the citation. So with that being said, you can scan this again for a free sentiment analysis, and I'll turn it over to Giuseppe.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Cody and Kat, also for speeding up towards the end. So in the interest of time, we only have 10 minutes left. Let me also welcome back Jules here on the virtual stage. We have 10 minutes, and I've counted so far 11 questions. We won't be able to go over all of them, but if you guys can try to give as synthetic short answers as possible, then we'll try to cover as many of them as possible. Okay, so we'll start with the first one. It's an icebreaker. It's a question for Jules. Why is, in your opinion, brand sentiment important for AI visibility and AI growth?
Yeah, I will keep it as short as possible. So if you're being mentioned in an AI response, it is just important that you're being recommended to use, not being discouraged. And we also notice that if, for example, there is negative sentiment around your brand, you can still become part of the candidate set, but you will be skipped out of the eventual answer. So actually, it is really important to drive your AI visibility score to have a positive sentiment around your brand. That was short, right?
All right, short and sweet, very clear. Thanks, Jules. Next one is for anyone, so feel free, guys, to step on the question. Is it possible to turn negative Reddit sentiment into a competitive advantage? And if yes, how?
Yeah, I can speak on that a little bit. This was actually one of the questions that I was referring to earlier in the example, the screenshot of that one analysis that we were showing. And it is in a competitive advantage, and it is something you can do. And I definitely recommend scanning the QR code for the sentiment analysis and putting some of the questions in there about this particularly, because that's actually what that sentiment analysis and Reddit audit, is for. It's for us to review that negative Reddit sentiment and then give recommendations on that competitive advantage that we can give you and recommend. And then we actually go through the how. So I don't want to take up too much time on going through the how. So definitely scan that QR code, and that's something we can go over with you in the future.
Fantastic. So next question from Maud. It's for anyone. So I guess maybe Cody, you can go next. How to make sure the Reddit account does not get banned? We create accounts and it gets banned after 3-4 answers that are just to warm up and not any plugs. I don't know if the question is clear.
Yeah, I think, again, one, it's not the end of the world if it gets banned. I know it's frustrating and it's a setback, but that's one thing. The second thing is just you need to do some work, do some research. There are subreddits that are more accepting, let's say, of new accounts than others. And so that's what we try and do, is we try and find those subreddits that are a little bit more welcoming. And then absolutely not should you do anything promotional for the first few months with those accounts. It should be all, self-admitting, like, hey, I'm new here, really like the community, looking forward to discuss. Again, you need to act like a human who's interested in that topic of the subreddit that you joined. Yep.
Yeah, makes sense. So next question from Jakob, also for Cody or Kat. Do you suggest having a corporate company account that responds to negative comments? Who wants to take this?
I think that's an internal discussion you need to have, and you need to be honest with yourself on, do we have legitimate answers to the most common complaints that we hear? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is yes, then yes, you should have an account, because then you're already prepared to answer these questions and to facilitate a good conversation. If the answer is no, then the answer is no.
Yeah. I guess what I hear sometimes also from like talking to companies, to brands, is that it depends on how your company setup is structured internally, right? If you have the resources to actually invest into this, because easily it can become really heavy and time consuming. And so if you just do it sporadically, then it will never work. But if you have the chance to do it consistently, then obviously it's much better. Yeah. Next question from Elias. It's a little long. So my question is, Reddit gets cited frequently in my niche. I'm not sure if the niche is explained which niche is that about, especially in threads recommending service providers. However, whenever I comment on these posts on mention a brand, my account gets banned or the comments are deleted. Is there a way to avoid this, or should I simply stop commenting on those threads altogether, even if they get cited all the time? Maybe it's more a question for Jules. I don't know.
I actually think that this is the most suitable for Cody or Katarina. You have the in-depth knowledge there.
Yeah, so, yeah. I can chime in here briefly. I mean, I think this goes along with something Cody did mention earlier on, commenting on those cited threads. If it's really old, that might be a reason why your account is getting banned or removed. So it comes with the strategy that we also work on with clients as well, where we will help go through those cited threads and recommend where to comment, where to not comment, because it's a possibility. If you continue to comment on those threads and they're really old, then you may see comments getting removed or your account getting banned.
Yeah,
So,
Giuseppe, can I add one thing here that I think is critical? And I hate to say this because I would love to assume everybody operates in good faith, but that's just not the case. Sometimes on Reddit, you're going to have moderators who may have a better relationship with your competitor than they do with you. And so it has nothing to do with how you're doing the activity. It's just the moderator is already friends with your competitor, or they've been paid, or there's a million black hat, gray hat techniques that we've seen that we don't like to participate in. But that's why, if that's the case, we suggest creating your own subreddit, whether it's branded or non-branded. Then you're the one who can comment in there, who can't. And I'm not saying to become, somebody who kicks all your competitors out, but I'm saying to be aware of that, and that creating your own subreddit is more of a long-term solution to navigate.
Yeah, very good point. The next one isn't a question, it's just more of a comment. If you haven't been banned from Reddit, you haven't been on Reddit long enough.
Agreed.
So Elias again, question, should we buy old Reddit accounts? Straight to the point.
It depends. I don't think it's the best way to go about it. I think you should be truly organic. If you do, it should be an account that's already operating in your specific niche. What we've seen sometimes is people will create accounts in the weirdest and wildest subreddits that just generate a lot of karma quickly. And those are actually detrimental and are signals to moderators to ban you, because they're like, hey, how did this account get 500 karma in 2 weeks? And they look into your history and see that it's been operating in weird random subreddits and not in industry specific subreddits.
Yeah, I'd err away from that if you can. Just create a new account and build up that account. I think there's a lot of risk that comes with buying an old account.
All right, good enough. We have 3 minutes left, so maybe we have time for 2/3 more questions. If you guys are quick in answering, then we'll wrap it up. What success criteria should be applied to accomplishments on Reddit? In other words, what results do I present that ensure the Reddit activities benefits the company and its revenue? Obviously, right? Relation between business impact and Reddit activities. Who wants to take it?
Jules, do you want to start? Because I think the obvious one is citations, right?
It is citations, and honestly, also something that we are pushing very much forward to is self-attribution. Of course, when somebody checks out, that they actually mention, hey, we got to know about this product via Reddit for the first time. So self-attribution is also a very interesting metric to put in there for reporting.
Yeah, to add to that, when you post on Reddit, you get additional KPIs and metrics that you can see. Obviously, you can see how many people have viewed your post, how many people have upvoted it. The typical, Reddit activity are KPIs that we look at. Referral traffic back to your site. In some subreddits, you can post links, right? So you can actually get referral traffic from Reddit. And then last click attribution is hard. I'm just going to say it how it is. Even the people at Reddit, they talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Last click attribution should not be the determining factor here. So I would say it's a mixed bag. There's not just one KPI that you should be monitoring.
All right. So last question, really. There are still a few that will not be answered today. I'm sorry. You guys can still feel free to connect directly with Cody, with Katarina, and which was later on, maybe schedule a call with them. I'm sure they will be happy to answer any of your questions. So last one is from Sachin. So how many accounts do we need to engage with the audience? A corporate, employees, and also random accounts? I guess it means how many asset types does one brand need to have, in order to have a proper strategy?
Yeah, to take it from Jules, it depends, his favorite non-answer. But it really does, right? It depends on how big your industry is, how big your community is on Reddit, how many different communities there are discussing your industry on Reddit. So I think that's more a specific one that I would have a better answer for after we did the audit, because then we could actually see the playground that you're playing in.
All right. And with this, I suppose we need to wrap it up. Dennis, Yannick, Maud, I'm sorry for your questions not been answered today, but as I said, please connect with Cody, Katarina, and Jules via LinkedIn, via email. You will receive the recording of this webinar, and you will be able to engage with both Textbroker and with Rankscale AI. Here, there are still 2 QR codes you can scan for getting free sentiment analysis, as well as a 10% discount on your Rankscale AI subscription. And this is it. I'm sorry we are already, this hour really flew over. So thank you very much for participating. Thanks for the audience for participating as well. And we will be back certainly after summer with another webinar. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Bye.